Welcome to the Inspired Focus podcast. I am your host, Jaime O'Connor, and you are going to be taken on a journey with my guest, Ron Lynch. He is a friend and a mentor, a guide, and honestly, a father figure to me. And this episode is one that is steeped in wisdom. There's so much to take in and listen to through all of Ron's experience and what he has to offer the world. And all I can say is this is one of those episodes you'll probably want to save and be reminded of what kind of life is possible. I can't wait for you to hear it. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the platform of your choice. Follow us on Instagram at Inspired Focus Podcast and my personal at Jaime Ella O'Connor. That's an O-R at the end. And if you haven't heard, I have launched a monthly breathwork membership that is an incredible 2-hour experience every single month that will guide you, transform you, transmute, and release stress and experiences that you may be having. I also have openings for my retreat in Todos Santos, Mexico in Baja California Sur. That's coming up May 21st through the 26th. This is for driven individuals that are interested in defining success on their own terms, experiencing deep rest, reset, and also connection to their deeper purpose. If you'd like more information or to sign up, please go to flourishbaja.com. And now, here is your episode. Welcome to the Inspired Focus podcast. This is your host, Jaime O'Connor, and I am honored and excited to bring on my guest today. Ron Lynch is someone who came into my life about 5.5 years ago and has been a mentor and a friend, a sage, a guide in so many respects. What started as a mentor in marketing really became somebody that brought so much wisdom to my life and a bit of a father figure in many ways in the time that I've gotten to spend with him. And I am just so deeply grateful. So I hope that our conversation today, wherever it may lead, because I don't know where it's going to go, is going to introduce some of that wisdom to people in my life who don't know him. One of the things that I think is so incredible about Ron is that his impact on your life is probably already bigger than you know, and you probably don't know his name. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about him. He is one of the people behind products you may even have in your house and has impacted so many lives in that way. And his story to getting there is one that is part of the marketing genius he brings. But the other pieces, the layers underneath that I have gotten to know from Ron are what have actually impacted my life even more. So thank you, Ron. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wow, what a nice introduction. Holy smokes. I try to live up to some of that.
You know, I ask for bios and then I don't even really read them because I am fortunate enough to have so many incredible people in my life that so far all of my interviews have been with people who have impacted my life, and I can share something about them that maybe other people don't know. So you are one.
We've been a few places in the world together too.
We have. Yeah. Some beautiful places. We met in Fiji. We spent 5 days in Hilton Head together learning about the deep secrets of infomercials, which still impact me so much every day. And yeah, I already explained so much of the journey. And I think one of the things, especially coming from the digital marketing world, that has always been one of my favorite things about you is that in that world, so many people display themselves as so important. And yet the people who've actually had the biggest impact on our life in marketing are actually people that most people will never hear their name. And you are one of those people, truly.
Yeah, I kind of like it that way. I've gone to great extent to not become famous.
Yeah. I think that there's a really beautiful and amazing quality that many of us can learn from just that alone and that choice. And the life that you
when I was a young person, I got to meet and work with a lot of famous people, and I never saw it as a benefit for them. It was always a price that came with fame for them, with insincere relationships, the expectation to pay for everything. There's not a lot of benefit to being famous.
Yeah. And there's quite a bit of benefit to having your solace and your privacy and your sovereignty.
Yeah, I like to operate in a quiet life and go where I want and do what I want and be a fly on the wall.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that is so interesting about you is you started your journey actually more in the public eye and being kind of on the acting side and the public eye side of it before journeying behind the scenes. And
yeah, I really thought when I was a kid I wanted to be a movie star, and I ended up in the movie business, and I was acting, and I realized how boring that was, how the days were sitting around waiting to do stuff. And then all of those other things that I mentioned that went along with fame. And River Phoenix was a good friend of mine. And when he passed away, I went, I'm done. I'm not going to be in front of the camera anymore. I was encouraged actually by Jeff Bridges to start writing, which I did. And writing led me to writing screenplays. And he said, if you write, you'll always have a job. And it turns out he was right.
Yeah.
I've never had a need for a job in my life because I've always been one or two projects are always waiting for me.
Yeah. That's an amazing thing to have and to find. And not just be good at, but I mean, I've seen your passion in actually enjoying the work too, which is such a hugely important part of this.
Yeah, I think that being a curious person helps. You know, one of my favorite people in history is Leonardo da Vinci, who was an incredibly curious person. And he became expert in a number of things: light, painting, engineering, architecture, you know, all these things. And I went, that's the kind of life I want to have, is to, and not to be regarded by anybody else that way, just to be that curious. And so I'm fascinated by science and photography and cooking and all of the things that end up writing, persuasion, all the things end up in our craft. Because I think to be really good at a craft, you need to know something about a couple other crafts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And isn't that interesting? See, one of the things that to me comes out of that is actually deepening into your unique recipe of life, like finding the things that light you up by being curious through all of these different pieces and putting your own puzzle pieces together, which then makes your own portrait that no one else can have because you've gathered each one of those individual pieces from some. We all may try cooking, but you're going to find the pieces of it that then resonate with so many other areas, which it was actually a huge like lead magnet, I guess, if you will, for you. You took making pizza into one of the ways that you taught incredible marketing genius.
Yeah, and for me, it's curiosities. I am the kind of person, if I go to a restaurant and they make something that's wonderful, I'll say, can I go back and see how that's done? And most people won't ask that question. They'll have that fear. I'm dumb enough to ask. And so I carry that over to everything in life. If there's something I'm curious about, I just go ask and I discover and I get knowledge or experience. And then I just mention it to somebody else. And that really is the impetus of good advertising, is explaining to people stuff that they don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
hey, here's this wonderful thing. Are you curious about this? How this person did that? Whether it's making a pizza or healing the body with frequencies or an actual practical use for NFTs in the world. Like, I'll look into all those rabbit holes and I'll find something. I'll be like, wait a minute, there's something here that you guys don't understand. Would you like to take a look at this? That's going to end up in a sale or a conversion of something.
Yeah. And if you can take that curiosity and help people in their lives, then you're making a greater impact beyond. One of the things you actually mentioned in there that I think there's a huge gold nugget in is the fact that people are curious and they're too afraid to ask. They let their
fear is the number one thing that stops people in everything.
Everything. And it stops
relationships, parenthood, science. Fear stops us.
Yeah. It really stops you from not only getting to the answers of your own inquiries, but it stops you from making a positive impact on other people too, because of what you just described.
Yeah. And I think there's a weird dichotomy that causes it too, that causes this fear. As little kids, we program our kids with stuff that we shouldn't. And one of the things that we tell kids is, if you do that, nobody will like you. If you stand out, you won't be liked. You'll be embarrassed. And shame drives a lot of human behavior and a lot of fear. And one of the things that I've learned is losing the fear of being disliked is one of the most powerful things you can do. And I'm a person based in faith to a great extent. And I was thinking about this morning as I was writing to somebody. I said, where in the Bible is there a verse where Jesus got up in the morning and said, gosh, I hope they like me today?
Yeah.
He never did. Being disliked is actually a pretty good risk because you know who you are. Truthful people are disliked by a certain percentage of the population, and that's completely fine. And if we stop teaching kids that, we don't want to teach them to be selfish, but at the same time, be curious and take risks, speak your mind. And if somebody doesn't like that, you're still okay.
Finding the safety in yourself as a whole and not needing that in other people. And faith is a huge part of that, I think. Whatever faith that holds. Yeah, like whatever that.
What's the number one fear that people have? I mean, this has been studied many times. What's the number one fear that people have?
Being disliked? Is that
public speaking?
Yeah, which is really
public speaking always ranks number one.
Yeah, which is not the actual
shame.
Yeah, the actual fear is being shameful, being disliked, being the deeper layer. It's not the public speaking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to be disliked. I don't want people to hate me. I don't want to be judged. I don't want to experience shame.
Yeah. It's so true. It's interesting because on another episode I recorded with Eric Cabral, we had a lot of conversation around conscious parenting because as I've been deepening into these lessons in the transitions of my 30s, and reparenting myself, in all honesty, I am learning mostly through parenting my child and the way that I want to bring him up to not hold the same fears and shames and experiences so that he can make decisions from a sovereign place at a much younger age. I hope that is my hope for him.
Well, that awareness right now gets embedded in your parenting. There's just you being aware of that. And I don't know your parents, but I can guess from what you're saying that was not part of their experience. It wasn't part of their thinking.
Totally.
And it wasn't for mine. That one of the most powerful tools parents use is shame.
Totally.
Do what I want or else.
Yeah. And I do totally believe, and I think we actually talked about this at one of our many dinners in Hilton Head, that my parents, just as their parents did, the best that they knew what to do with their, and I think most of our generations did. No one came into child rearing being like,
oh yeah, no, there's no book,
you know,
but there's some things that culturally happened in the last 100 years, though, that are worth examining as to why it happened. Now, I could go to my grandparents' generation, which was the greatest generation.
right?
Now, these people were born prior or during World War One. They lived through a Great Depression where they lost money, housing, siblings, parents. Then came World War II. And so by the time they started their nuclear families, there was Korea and there was Vietnam, but that was not as impactful to the population as the transformation that technology took.
Mm-hmm.
And the society. Women entered the workforce, and most baby boomers grew up in a household with a father working and a mother probably home. And the baby boomers themselves had to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have a whole lot of hardship. Their parents had built a pretty great nuclear family experience for them as kids. They're called the me generation, and they lived fairly comfortably. But for money, the budgets of the world's changed, and both, mom and dad had to work for all the Gen X and Gen Z kids. All their parents worked. They were all latchkey kids. So people that are like 55 and down to 35 or even 30 now, probably extending to younger kids, their parents weren't there.
Mm-hmm.
They were raised by televisions.
Yeah.
And after school programs and the neighborhood kids, and it was a different, so they're kind of more like the Gen X. I mean, the greatest generation, because they were alone.
Yeah.
Now, that's not besmirching baby boomers. It's just that was the experience.
Right.
And so you have a whole bunch of people like us that were kind of raised by ourselves and our siblings in our neighborhood. And we're kind of free-range humans. We're kind of
yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I, personally, like, I know, and this is actually something I would love to get into in your journey. For me, I don't believe you have to have a difficult or traumatic experience in order to come to really amazing life lessons. I have to believe that because I'm trying to create a different life for my son, right? I'm trying to give him the tools to have these lessons earlier in life and not have to experience them from difficulty or traumatic experiences. However, I think because of the experiences I had from what you described in other areas as well, I am making major life changes. I have been in major life changes. I have been having the desire to do it differently than my parents did it and bring a different change to the world. And those major moments for me are impacting the way that I am impacting others as a leader in business, others as a guide and mentor with clients, and the way that I'm raising my kid and coming kid, I guess.
Yep.
And I know that you had many moments over your life that were like significant times of change that brought about huge lessons and knowing and wisdom for you.
And try not to cause trauma in our own children.
And try not to cause trauma in our own children.
Yeah.
Yes.
How do we do this without creating trauma? Everybody has their own traumas. So, we all get over them, hopefully.
I'm definitely of the belief that, this is something I work on with my clients because I tend to work with very driven individuals in my coaching that are also parents. And there's a huge push and pull in that experience. And we have this desire to outperform everything all the time when we're like very highly driven humans. And I am of the belief that every child has their soul's journey. Every human has a soul's journey. And that they're going to experience some form of their own trauma. If we hold that like we're going to be responsible for every little tiny thing, and if we have to do it perfectly, then we're never going to actually be the parent that we can be. And we can do our best to bring forth the lessons and the tools for them to do.
Yeah. I think that the actual end game is, one, you learn more from being a parent than you learn from having a parent.
Yes.
By a long shot. I have 3 kids, and I learned a hell of a lot more from my 3 kids than being one of 3 kids to my parents. Mm-hmm. My kids have taught me infinite amount. Second is the tools is the essential thing, and then the thinking and the emotional maturity is you want to equip them to deal with it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's it.
Because they're gonna deal with it.
You're gonna deal with it. Yeah, you're gonna so equip them so that they can have those. And my kids have actually helped me with that. So I can reflect that back to them now because I'm a better parent because they helped me do that. One of the things about driven people because I've obviously been around them my whole life. Like I've worked in the high pressure environments. We've done $6 billion worth of revenue. We've worked in hundreds of companies. And I am nobody you'll ever know. But if you saw my Rolodex, you'd realize I know everybody. Mm-hmm. I've worked with everybody. Like I've gone around the world. The things that we actually affect are so rare. We work and when you're a driven person, you think I can be in control of all this and I can make all this happen and I can. But when you go back and you assess later what you actually did to make it happen, very little of it was you. You have some points of inflection where you pushed the ball this way or that way and you made a difference. But the actual skill set is coping with what's going on. One of the reasons I get put in charge of things all of the time and I lead people is not because I know what to do. It's how I know how to deal with it. And I know how to communicate to them. And I know how to get them out of the way of all of their own BS and the distractions that they're creating in the midst of what they need to do. And I go, no. This. Mm-hmm. I see all the same noise you see. I see all the plates spinning. Screw that. We're not going to pay attention to all that. We're going to pay attention to this point of inflection. This is where we're going to have influence. Let's focus our energy on this thing. You do that a few times, people start to trust you. And really, when they're trusting you, they're learning to trust themselves. And that's all you're teaching people. Yeah.
Yes. And honestly, I think that is the greatest lesson I've probably learned from you. You taught me that in producing infomercials, but in reality, that lesson is everything. It's everything it's how to raise children. It's how to run a business. It's how to create an amazing infomercial.
Well, and I mean, I use the tool of commercial production, and in the things that I teach too, is I don't teach you what to think, I teach you how to think. Mm-hmm. And what commercial production does is it forces you into a situation, not unlike learning how to sail. If you don't know how to sail does, you're shoved into a situation that's uncomfortable and you don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. You know the outcome you want, but you don't see how all the parts and pieces fit together. Most importantly, you learn how to listen. You learn how to ask the right questions. You learn how to empathize and care with what's going on. You learn how to deal with multiple distractions. People, whether you're a hunter or a gatherer, you have multiple distractions. And learning what to do right now is the thing you have to learn how to do, is what's next. And sometimes the what next is for survival, and sometimes the what next is for productivity and getting the result. And you have to weigh survival with productivity. How do I take the next step without losing ground? And that's what life is. Life is, how do I progress without slippage? Without destroying the relationship, without losing the money, without all of the thing, without hammering my health. Because that life is a game of making all of those balances and negotiations with yourself to retain your health, to gain wisdom, to be helpful to other people. Our value is not just our value. Our value is what value we bring to the people around us. We're tribal creatures. So I want to be insanely valuable to the tribe. Why? Because I'm lazy.
Okay. All right. Go deeper with that one.
Who works less in the tribe than the chief, than the medicine man?
Yes, true.
People bring them shit. Right? Because they've got specified knowledge at the right time for the things that people need. So, yeah, I want to be big chief tall feather. So if I know enough stuff and I can give enough guidance, I actually lower my stress level. And this is one of the things I've learned in the last 4 years. I now work very few hours a day. People say, what do you do for a living? I think. I don't, my life is paid for. I don't, I have an electric bill and a phone bill. That's about it. And I spend my day literally tending antelope and my dogs on a ranch. And I think, and all I do is those things just occupy my body, and I move my body and I work out and I cut down wood and I'm doing things physically all the time. But that's so that I think, so that the blood flows through my cerebellum. And I think. And I think stupid thoughts and idiotic thoughts and moronic thoughts. And I think brilliant thoughts. And I write those down. And I have the benefit now of having educated myself and my tribe economically out of having to worry. I don't worry about my kids. I don't worry about what's for dinner. I don't worry about the bills that are coming. I don't worry about things breaking. It's so difficult when you're in tribal survival because you're tied up in thoughts and worry.
Yeah. The thoughts and worry that are not the thinking, that is the freedom of thinking.
Exactly. It's useless anxiousness.
Yeah.
And I was consumed by useless anxiousness for years. And once you can, there's people that are a lot younger than me that are a lot wiser because they dropped out of society at a very early age and went and wandered the world. You meet them. You're 20 years younger than I am, and you have all this experience and wisdom from detaching.
Well, I've made the conscious choice. I did make the conscious choice very early to detach, and I get reattached, and that's part of the lessons. That's part of my soul's lessons to come back to. And I think, but when I got the little nuggets, the seeds that planted, then I went and sought out people like you to be my guides, to stay in that mindset. And that to me is at, I think most of the people who probably listen to this podcast or in my world are in my age range of, mid 30s going to into 40s and in major life transition often, because this is a point of that inflection. And the best thing I could ever do was sit and listen to those 20 years ahead of me who've made these choices and really, really ground into the wisdom and knowledge that comes from that, and then take action to do those experiences in my own life from my own inner guidance.
Yeah. For me, one of my most pivotal experiences was a year ago on December 6th. I did an MDMA therapy session. Um, and I don't do a lot of drugs. I'm not a drug dealer. I've never done a line of cocaine in my life because I'm afraid that I would like it. And there's a little bit of Robin Williams in me. And if I liked cocaine, I'd probably be gone. So, just never been but I was an alcohol person. Not really anymore. But what I had experienced, from, being an actor, then a writer, then I worked in the grocery industry, and I was a proper brick and mortar business person for a dozen years, and then a filmmaker, and then running advertising agencies, and then doing inventions. And I have this, I kind of saw my life or my brain as this gigantic whiteboard. Like you see those drawings of the people at Princeton or Yale, and they're on a ladder, and the whole gigantic 3-story wall is one massive equation. And that's what my brain was like. It was so stacked with data and experiences, but also emotional pain that was stacked in the mortar of all of those bricks. And in one MDMA session, I cleaned that entire whiteboard off, yet I still had access to all of the information that was useful. And that transition I think, gave me more clarity than anything as a teacher. And it also, at that exact same moment, I internally knew what I was having to do, because I made some of these decisions immediately before that MDMA experience. I sold everything. I sold my mansion. I sold my exotic cars. I sold all of the trappings of wealth. And I bought this little ranch house in the middle of nowhere, paid off my entire life, owe nobody any money. And then I could go, boom, now I can think and help people. So getting yourself to that zero after spending 20 years of saying, I'm not enough. If I just did this, if I just did that, if I gained the respect of my peers and my parents and my friends and my society by having this status, and I use knowledge as status, and I let go. And I went, I'm okay. I'm actually okay. God still loves me. The world still does what it does. My family loves me. I'm just fine. Now what do I have to worry about? Real things. Now I can think about other people's problems and help them.
It's so important. It's so beautiful. And it's been my experience. Anyone who listens to the show knows that I'm a fan of psychedelic therapy. It's changed my life in many ways. MDMA therapy, ayahuasca for me has actually been one of the biggest life changers. And it's walking through the mortar, basically the darkness, being willing to shed it, let it go, and know that the parts of you that actually matter get to still exist and serve and be built-in wisdom. And you don't have to have a psychedelic experience to do that. You can do a lot of other ways to shed the pain and the trauma and the pieces. But
and one of the foundational things that I've learned, from that voice, and I'll say it's the voice of God when I was there, was you don't need to think about all that stuff. All of the stuff that you're trying to resolve is not resolvable because it's not happening now. It happened then. And you can try to rationalize. I grew up in a family where there were two things said to you. If something went great, wow, you're fortunate. You sure are lucky. No matter what you achieved, you were lucky. And if something went bad, what did you do to bring that upon yourself? I bet you don't do that stupid thing again.
Right.
Those were the two metrics that I was raised on. And so then that puts you in a position of, I don't deserve any of the good that I have in my life. I didn't do it to earn it. It was just gifted to me, and I'm unworthy. And then of all of the other things, you were worthy of that. You earned all that stuff. So now you have to rationalize what steps you went through to get all the bad things and think about those so you don't repeat that. Which is utter nonsense.
Yeah.
That entire line of thinking is absolutely utter nonsense. You're not being punished and rewarded. You're experiencing. This life only goes in one direction, forward. If you've got your head in the back seat, digging through the box going, what happened here and then and that? It's useless because it's not happening. It happened.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that resonates with so many people. I know it's something that we talk about in my household a lot because it's very much how my husband was raised. And it's
a super normal way for people to raise people.
Totally. It creates a deep lack of trust in yourself is what it really does.
Well, it's cheap. It's a cheap knockoff of Judeo-Christian philosophy.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like the worst parts of it. It's like the parts that don't actually serve you.
I mean, it's the interesting part of salvation where people go, hey, we're working in a system right now where there's a God that's watching you and he's making notes and he's going to punish you for everything that you do. Oh, and by the way, the good stuff he gave you. True, the good stuff he did give you. He wants you to experience that. The bad stuff happens. How do you deal with it?
Yeah.
I don't believe in Santa in the sky. I believe in God in my heart, which is an experience. It's a way to live. You go, oh, okay. Then how do I deal with bad things when they happen? Well, first of all, stop seeing them as bad things. How many times in your life has something bad happened? I didn't get that job. They didn't hire me. To 3 weeks later, dream job. Wow, if I'd taken that job that I didn't really want from the jerk that didn't hire me, I wouldn't have the dream job. It's a blessing. So from your current perspective, you can't actually judge what's happening right now. So why waste your time judging what's happening right now? Just get through it. It's going to come out in retrospect, but do it joyfully. I could serve a prison sentence joyfully. That's what I know about myself now. A lot of shit could happen to me and I could do it joyfully.
Yes. I feel that deeply. I think you know this about me. I think anyone who listens, because I'm fairly open about my experiences, knows that about me too. And the ability to alchemize those experiences and recognize that is real. The core of it is deeply knowing that that's true. I can look back on my entire life and there is not one difficult, traumatic, hard experience that I cannot see a through line to the most amazing things in my life. And knowing that, like having that absolute truth in me and in my heart makes so much magic happen in my life. And I mean, I've talked about this pretty openly. I don't think I've talked about it openly on the podcast yet, but like on my Facebook page for anyone who follows me, like I actually can look back on being raped at 18 years old in college and see a direct through line to the human I am today, but not because of trauma, because that experience led me to a therapist who then led me to programs that deepened my spiritual connection and my abilities to understand this deeper truth within myself that I may never have had if I hadn't had that experience happen. And that's not silver lining and putting a bunch of bullshit on it, because I actually can truly see. Again, I go back to, I don't believe people have to have traumatic experiences to have major life changes. However, we are having a human experience, and the human experience is not always easy. Like it just isn't. So if we can know there is a through line to something so amazing from the experiences that we have, we can very quickly turn it around into like, okay, whatever is happening, this is for me in a beautiful way, not in a like horrible.
Oh, yeah. You know, and it gives you the potential to live better and better, because, you know, when you're young, you're kind of like a doe in the woods bouncing along, and you want to trust everybody, and you kind of do. And stuff happens. And now I'm 56 years old. And at 56, I can sniff out the narcissists, the liars, the people that are uncommitted to their own business. Like, I can sniff out so much stuff so fast that I don't get involved. I go, nope, steering clear of this steering. And then I see the ones from experience that care, that are devoted, that are just a little lost and need some guidance and some nurturing and go, those ones and I jump in and they flourish. And then people say, how do you pick so well? How come you got so many successes? Because I'm selecting correctly. But I have been through enough selection processes to know how to select correctly. And picking right is about 80% of life.
And you have to go through the difficulty, the hard times, the massive failures to do it. I mean, that's a huge
or you learn from somebody else's. I mean, I did have mentors along the way.
Yeah.
And my mentors said, one of the secrets to my success at an early age was I got mentors and they said, do this. And I didn't say why. Explain it to me. I just did it. Then I got the result and then they'd explain why. And I was ahead of my peer group. And they'd go, see, that's why I picked you. I knew you'd do it. And all those other yahoos didn't. Look how they're stuck. And
yeah.
Find good mentors that have good experience and have your interest at heart and do what they say. Don't ask them why. You'll see why once you do it.
Yeah. There's a lot of faith in that. There's a lot of trust, which like really so much of our conversation so far today, that is the core of this. Trust in yourself, faith in yourself, trust in the people that you've chosen to be your guides and your shepherds and your mentors, and trust in God, universe, whatever you want to call it, having that level of faith.
You've worked with me intimately now for several years. You've been through things that I've taught. I don't let you do it right.
True.
I set you up. I intentionally set you up to fail week after week. To get you through the failure faster.
Yeah.
I go, what do you think of this? And because I know what people think. I know what the framework of a pre-programmed human is. And everybody who comes to me is a pre-programmed human who's been trained by the marketplace, the world, and the educational system for either 20 to 50 years. And they come to me and I immediately recognize what I'm dealing with. And I go, great, let's get to failing. I start to have you do stuff where you are going to answer it wrong, you're going to be wrong, you're going to break it, you're going to screw it up, so that the next week we can go, okay, now we see where that break is. Now we're going to put a chip in there. We're going to reinforce. We're going to put the right answer in there. Now let's go do it the right way. Then you do it the right way and you go, oh. And what people thought was the hard way is actually the easy way because it has less stumbles. Whenever I hear an advertiser or a thinker say, well, the easiest thing to do, my radar's up. I'm like, the easiest thing to do is rarely the rightest thing to do. The most well thought out thing and then take an action is usually going to get you closer. Easy doesn't usually do it. Strategy does do it, but strategy in action. You can't think about it forever.
Yeah.
You got to take some risks.
Yeah.
So I don't believe in planning forever, but I don't believe in ready, fire, aim.
Yeah. Yeah. Just jumping off the bridge without a plan of how you're going to swim to the banks. Like that's not going to serve you any more than sitting in analytical over processing forever.
I've never sat with a client and said, we'll figure it out as we go. Because then I know that I'm out of my league. That's like me, because I know how to fly a plane, getting in planes that I haven't flown before, instructing or co-piloting. And you say, oh, yeah, it's a plane. I know how to fly 727, 737, G2. It doesn't matter. Like, no, it matters. So what we see in a lot of consulting, coaching, advertising, marketing, a lot of the industries is, I've done this before. We'll figure it out. Again, that's why I teach methodologies that go, wait, you don't have to. We have a plan. We have a way to figure it out before we get started. Let's fill in the blanks of about 10 pages and just get all the parts on the table, and then we'll know.
Yeah. I mean, so much you've said in all of that, it takes me back to doing Marketing Mercenary with you, and how many deep lessons were in that, not just in becoming a better business owner and marketer, but really truly in life, and how much the way of doing that has influenced the way I just operate now, where I take massive risk and massive chance with a plan of action.
Calculated.
And often in the middle of that plan, I have to change, but I have a way to change. I have a way to take a left turn so that my end goal works, because I have my battle plan.
Yeah. No, it's learning to craft a life as a strategic thinker.
Mm-hmm.
And having, because once you go through, and I mean, I'm not pitching Mercenary, but just the experience that we had together, once you go through that on a week-to-week basis and fail, you realize the confidence of success of capability that you have at the other side of it.
Yeah.
Once you get through it, then you're like, oh, now I trust myself. Now I know exactly what to say to land a client. Now I know exactly what to say when I land that client, what process we go through to get to the discovery of their real stuff so that we're successful with their stuff. Then we can go to implementation. A lot of people, and I was one of them, when I was a kid, I wanted to make TV commercials. That's one of the things I really wanted to do. And I remember going, I have such clever ideas. And I'd get into that segment in either language arts or in college in my communications courses. I'm like, let's sit down and create commercials. Aren't we clever? With absolutely nothing but a sense of humor and intelligence. It's like, yeah, you can create fun work, but it doesn't move the needle. It doesn't sell anything. It doesn't do what you're just expressing, frankly, the insecurity of your personality in an entertaining way to make yourself feel good about yourself. So I can come up with a clever ad is an ad person does not make you.
Yes, totally. Well, and for me, I mean, what you said about Mercenary, and again, not a pitch. However, if you are in the marketing industry, it is absolutely probably the only course that you ever need to take. Having gone through my MBA, I remember telling my husband while I was going through Mercenary, like, this is harder than my MBA. And it wasn't just because of the work. There was a lot of work, but it was because I had to face emotional fears every single week in order to not just get out of it what I needed to get out of it, but because you had to turn things in that were wrong and you didn't know, and you had to explore like the parts of yourself that were perfectionists and the parts of yourself that were desiring to prove yourself, and all of these different things that were coming up along the way. It wasn't just how do I become a good marketer. It was like, how do I deal with this as a human being? I mean, I think the first 2 or 3 lessons have nothing to do with business or marketing. They're deep mindset work.
Yeah, they're compass pointing, but it's like I say about my own life and cleaning off that whiteboard with the MDMA is, if you're not functioning with the right information to begin with the right perspective and the compass points that are correct, it is never going to work. Mm-hmm. And oddly, there's a lot of people that don't care if it ever works. They want to go through the emotional turmoil of life. They actually like the emotional turmoil. And I work with people still that I discover they don't want the right answer. They want to be the one that came up with the right answer. Mm-hmm. so that they feel good about themselves. So they won't listen to other people. Like, oh shit, I have no interest in somebody who wants to be right.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be with people that do right. And people that do right are willing to be wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
When I'm on set, I'm in charge. I'm the director, I'm the writer, I'm the producer, whatever. I'm king, big, tall feather. And I'm pretty good at actually listening to a lot. I have German Shepherd hearing. I can listen to about 6 conversations and have the 7th one. And somebody on set, a PA, says something that makes way more sense than what we're doing. And I have to have the intelligence and the humility to go, hold on a second. That person over there just said that. Did you hear that? They're right. We are all wrong. We have all the expertise in the world. And they just said something that's so pragmatically true. We better listen to that. And you have to bring that humility to life to go, even if I think I know the most in the room, I'm still as dumb as everybody else. That's just an illusion that I've told myself that I'm the smartest person in the room. There's no man above me and there is no man below me. And I teach that viciously to people. There is that the great news about the no man above me, no man below me is that there's a lot of people that think they're on a totem pole above you, and I will stand up to those people as well.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you better be right when you do it.
Yeah. Yes.
But I ain't afraid. Like, I sit with CEOs of large major American corporations, and they're surrounded by people that won't tell them the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say, well, no offense to this entire room, but have any of you bought one of these? Has any of you sold one of these? Does any of you need one of these? Our job is to go down to the end of the street and find some gal to purchase this. Who are we going to send? What message are we going to tell? And that when you start to talk to them like they're people instead of their titles, you start to gain their respect, and then you can do your work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. So much. There's so much goodness in all of that in business and in life. I mean, it's how to operate as a human being.
It is the mentality that you're willing to take losses and criticism and learning and be wrong and fail to win.
Mm-hmm. For me, it's not even win. It's to experience life in the grandest, most fulfilled way possible.
That's winning to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
mean, it is winning. I feel like I'm winning the lottery. So I feel
one of the things that happened in this MDMA experience of mine, it's, I wrote it, is like the whole thing is it's a screenplay. The first part of it is like what got me in the situation, and the next 70 pages is like a screenplay, me having this conversation with God. And one of the things that came away that really came through to me was words from above or from within that said, champagne for everyone. What a magnificent way to look at life in the world. What if you lived your life to make sure everybody got a taste of the champagne? The friends, the kids, the family. That's a nice way to live. If you're having that impact, you go, everybody deserves the sweetness. How do I get it there? How do I do my part to make sure that everybody gets a glass?
That's an amazing way to think. And I love that analogy. And from my perspective, Ron, if there's anyone that I know in life that is embodying that, you are certainly one of them.
Oh, so, thank you. I feel like I was instructed to do that, so I'm trying to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not doing it any better than anybody else. I'm just focused on that.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. And thank you for being so willing and open to share all of your wisdom and your experience and your knowledge. I mean, this conversation today, as always, but has been so deep and such a beautiful reminder of the way we get the opportunity to choose to live life.
We do. It's and our outlook on it. You can, like I say, you could sit in a prison cell joyfully. Mm-hmm. You can, and how the frame of mind that you select matters, because you're not an isolated character in the universe. You're a radio that's broadcasting a signal, and everybody who comes in contact with you is going to see and feel and hear your signal. And that signal hopefully comes from above and plays through you, and you realize it's not your signal, you're just the radio. And that's when you feel fulfillment, is when it's flowing through you. And when you can appreciate other people and their music and their radio, and realize it's, oh yeah, you're a radio. There's a bunch of other ones out here. Let's go listen to those and let them play and give them the love that they deserve for their signal.
So good. Oh my gosh. I'm so grateful for you, Ron. So grateful for you coming on with me today.
Thank you.
Being
I really appreciate it.
A mentor, and just being so willing to share out in the world and be a radiating example of how to do this thing, that we're doing. So, which is life. I know I could talk to you for hours and hours, and I hope we can do this again on the podcast. But so much unending gratitude for you. Where can people kind of go to follow you? I know you do stay fairly private, but you do have a couple things, I think, in Instagram, LinkedIn, maybe.
Yeah, I think probably that, like, if you want to writings and things like that, RonnieLynch.com. Actually, I have books that I've written there, and some examples of work. I'm fairly routine and prolific on Facebook, just because it's such a good broadcast network. But if you want to connect with me personally, the LinkedIn's probably okay. My site, you can sign up via email. If someone needs to get a hold of me, Ron at Big Baby Agency is my agency company, and that's where we make TV commercials. So Ron at Big Baby Agency, if you want to email me. But
perfect. Well, I highly recommend following Ron on Facebook, because he does often post some beautiful pieces of wisdom there that I have seen. Checking out his site, he does have several books, and getting on his email list, because if you are a marketer, and I don't know if you're going to be doing any more rounds of Marketing Mercenary or what that might look like for you, but truly, as you've heard today, it is a incredible experience, and you are learning from one of the greats, truly, as humble as he is. So I will make sure that all of those links that have been mentioned are in the show notes, and that you can access Ron if you would like to enter into his world. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who has listened. If you haven't already, please subscribe on the platform of your choice and follow us at Instagram at Inspired Focus Podcast, and my personal Instagram at Jaime O'Connor. And I am grateful for all of you. And I am, of course, so grateful for you, Ron.
Oh, thank you so much. And I adore you. And anytime you want to talk, I'm absolutely available.
Amazing.
Right.